I know from my hitchhiking trips through Arkansas as a child, it's a beautiful state. But let's put in perspective just how big Arkansas is. This little red square here is Arkansas in the United States. The population of Arkansas is 2.4 million people, and that turns out to be less than the population of Dallas and Fort Worth, the Metroplex combined, the population of 2.7. Much smaller than Los Angeles with 3.5 million, or Chicago with 2.8 million, or New York with 7.3 million. So basically, Arkansas is a relatively small population state and a relatively small state in terms of its geographic area. Its annual budget is a little over $4 billion. Compared to the U.S. budget of $1.43 trillion, this little black sliver here is Arkansas put in perspective. So this is what I referred to in the last debate as the corner grocery store, and this is a giant industrial corporation here. Where would Arkansas stand in the Forbes 500 list if it were a business? Would be 248th, ranks behind Toys R Us, Quaker Oats, and Chiquita Brands. So as corporations go, it's not a very big corporation. So you might say the governor's running a medium-sized business. And the next question is, how well is this business being run? Let's come down to brass tacks now. On the economy, they rank last among the 50 states in median family income. Now, there's no place to go but up. That's the good news. On economy, Arkansas ranks last, it's 50th among the 50th states, in the hourly wages for manufacturing workers. Not much manufacturing work in Arkansas. Manufacturing wages are the high-paying wages, the jobs of the future. In terms of disposable personal income, the people in Arkansas are poor. They're 48 out of the 50 states after 12 years of Governor Clinton's leadership and all these new programs he's put in Arkansas that he's told us about on television. In terms of people living above the poverty level, 46 states have more people living above the poverty level than Arkansas. It's 3 from the bottom. One of the poorest states in the United States after 12 years of Governor Clinton's leadership. Per capita income of its people ranks 47th, whereas 46 other states, people make more money than the people in Arkansas after 12 years of Governor Clinton's leadership. Tax fairness. Say, well, we don't have much money in Arkansas, but are the taxes fair? It's ranked behind 43 other states in terms of the equity and fairness of its tax system. And here's a man that plans to radically change our tax system in our country. We talked a great deal about the governor's programs for children, his wife's programs for children, their interest in children, and there's no question in my mind that their interest is genuine. But after 12 years, let's look at the results. In terms of child death rates in Arkansas, 49 states have a better record. So there's only one state worse. Violent teenage deaths. 47th out of the 50 states, only 3 states have a worse record of teenage death than Arkansas. Babies born underweight. They rank behind 44 other states, and only 5 states are worse. Single teenage births. Again, they rank behind 44 other states, and only 5 states have a worse record. Well, what about 2-parent families as opposed to single-parent families? They rank behind 40 other states. So anything you look at concerning children in Arkansas, in this little state, they rank at the bottom, or near the bottom, of our country. You say, Ross, this doesn't square with these big percentage increases that the governor talks about. It's pretty simple. If your net worth is a penny, and you get another penny, you have doubled your net worth. In other words, when you're at the bottom and you make a tiny little bit of improvement, you can show a significant percentage increase. The real test is where do you rank among the other states. And as you can see, Arkansas, after 12 years of Governor Clinton, is still at the bottom or very near the bottom. They talk a lot about the environment. Gore's written a book on the environment. They're going to be very strong on the environment. Well, let's look at results after 12 years. Government action taken to protect the environment in Arkansas, last place among the 50 states. Overall environment quality, they rank 48th out of the 50 states. The percent of clean rivers and streams, you'd think in a rural state that would be very high, but they rank behind 40 other states. Per capita ozone depleting emissions, they rank behind 40 states. Talk is cheap, folks. Action is dear. Arkansas is at the bottom. Well, instead of writing books and talking, maybe for 12 years they should have gone to work on this rural state with a small population where you could just kind of literally grab the lever and fix it, and fix the environment if they intended to. And all of these programs that were miracles in Arkansas that then get articulated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, produce this for the people in Arkansas. What you need to ask yourself tonight is, if you put this kind of thinking to work in Washington across our great country with its huge population and its diverse population, what are the odds we would have an improvement, or would it be regressive? What are the odds that a person who's been unable to make more dramatic change than this in 12 years in a tiny rural state would be able to face and solve the problems of our great nation? It's your decision. You think about it. Well, they all talk about education. College education rates in Arkansas, bottom of the 50 states. High school graduation rates in Arkansas, behind 47 other states, only 2 states below Arkansas, high school graduates. Now, our future and our children's future depends on their education, and when you're 50th and 48th here, and that's the best you've been able to do in a little state where you can literally just sort of grab it by the ears and fix it, what chance would a person with this performance record have of facing and solving the problems of our great country? Per capita education spending, only 1 state spends less than Arkansas, and here you see the result down here. Teachers pay, only 4 states spend less than Arkansas, and the results are shown here. I guess after I finished studying Arkansas, I was confused, and I couldn't understand how Arkansas could be the role model that we would use to reindustrialize America. And then I started studying the industries in Arkansas, and I'll sum it up right here. The governor talks about all these dramatic improvements in employment and jobs and what have you that he's created in Arkansas. Let's take a quick look at it. 1 out of 5 jobs in the last 12 years created in Arkansas has been created in the poultry business. Now, this is not an industry of tomorrow. This is honest work. It is hard work. The people that do it are world-class people. But if we decide to take this level of business creating capability nationwide, we'll all be plucking chickens for a living. And certainly this does not give us the job base that we want for ourselves and for our children. Now, what does a person in these chicken factories make? About $7 an hour. That's it. So I guess you could sum it up, you know, the chickens keep on clucking and the people keep on plucking after 12 years of Governor Clinton's leadership. Without questioning his commitment or his ability, you have to decide when you go to the polls, is this man qualified through background and experience to face and solve the incredibly complex problems that our nation must deal with? It's your choice. Here is where Arkansas is today. It's called the land of opportunity. I had it on all the license plates as I grew up, the land of opportunity. It can be the land of opportunity, but as you can see from these charts today, or tonight, Arkansas has not yet realized its potential and its opportunity. Now let's look at the real world. Our children's futures are not in the poultry industry. They're not in the worst education system in the 50 states, and on and on and on and on. The industries of the future are right here. microelectronics, biotech, telecommunications, civilian aviation, computers, software, and robotics. Is there anything in the governor's background or experience to develop overall comprehensive plans to bring the industries of the future to our great country when the best he could do was expand the chicken business in Arkansas? Now, this is your decision, but I wanted you to have a few facts because I'm sure that you are exactly like I am. You listen to all these wonderful programs in Arkansas, you hear the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 solution for our nation, you say, gee, this is terrific, let's go do it. But then if you go down and check what has been done in 12 years, what you find is a situation that will not solve our country's problems. Kind of like Will Rogers, about all I know is what I read in the newspapers. And here's some interesting comments from Governor Clinton's hometown newspaper. They say that Governor Clinton is leaving the state's Department of Human Services in disarray. He's leaving the medical payments slashed and his programs uncertain. They say that Governor Clinton had to be sued to do anything meaningful about the scandalous disregard of abused and neglected children in the state's care. They say that Governor Clinton's attitude toward releasing prisoners has been equally irresponsible and that constitutional reform has languished on Governor Clinton's watch. His own newspaper says Governor Clinton's environmental policies add up to little more than delay and neglect. They say that Governor Clinton may be running for president on a soak-the-rich appeal, but that his tax policies in Arkansas have been to hand out exemptions to large corporations and to soak the middle class. They say that the state's tax structure is more regressive than ever after a decade of Clintonomics. They admit that Governor Clinton is a great campaigner. They say Bill Clinton has proved to be a very mediocre administrator of the state of Arkansas. They ask in his hometown newspaper, are there any steadfast principles besides winning the next election that Bill Clinton would never compromise to win popularity? They say that Governor Clinton has mastered the art of equivocation and that there is something almost inhuman in his smoother responses that send a shiver up the spine. It is not the compromises he has made that trouble so much as the unavoidable suspicion that Governor Clinton has no great principles to compromise. His hometown newspaper goes on to say, how can we recommend him to America as a leader? Now let's take a look at President Bush's record in managing our country's economic affairs. I'm going to have to use my voodoo stick that Ashley gave me because, you know, back in the 1980, when he was running against President Reagan for president, he declared trickle-down economics as voodoo economics. Well, we can look at a 12-year record of it now. They continue to practice it. It's created a $4.1 trillion debt. We had a $1 trillion debt in 1980 when we started this practice. And again, I'll sum it up. Trickle-down economics didn't trickle. This is a huge burden for us to bear. We can't pass it on to our children. Now, if you understood managing money, you'd never let this happen. 70% of our $4 trillion national debt is due and payable in 5 years, and they do that to keep the interest rates low. But every business person listening to me tonight knows that you don't finance long-term projects with short-term money. And everybody that's quick with figures has already figured out that if interest rates move up 1%, it adds $28 billion to our debt. Just that little fluctuation in interest rates, because we have 70% of it financed short-term. Again, they just don't know how to manage money. Now, the money they're managing used to be your money. The debt they're building up belongs 100% to you and me. You need somebody up there who knows how to watch the cash register. The net effect of this is, through this mismanagement, is everybody west of the Mississippi's income taxes, ordinary income taxes from individuals that come into Washington, go strictly to pay interest on the national debt. I don't have to tell you that interest does not buy anything for us. Now, if you can take 4 more years of this, God bless you, I can't. Another indication is, as a result of this, the dollar continues to deteriorate, and what used to be $1 in 1950 is now 18 cents today. As you know, it's not only how many dollars you make, it's what will a dollar buy. Well, a dollar is buying less and less and less because of the mismanagement of our country's economy and the fact that the people in Washington, and specifically the president, don't understand business. And our problems used to be those of the Cold War. Our problem now is to rebuild our country, to reindustrialize our country, and to put our people back to work. There's only one candidate running that has done that in his business career. It's up to you. Pick the person you feel will best serve you. I bring this chart to your attention because it shows that the people in Washington, the president specifically, don't understand business. The number of manufacturing employees in our great country is now less than the number of employees, local, state, and federal, at all levels. To be a superpower, we have to make things. To be a great country, we must manufacture. The highest paid working jobs in the world are manufacturing jobs. And yet, during the past 12 years, when President Bush has been in Washington, as vice president and president, and was in charge of deregulation as vice president, we've shipped whole industries overseas. One of the reasons this happens is people leave the White House staff, become federal lobbyists, have access to the White House, and have enormous influence on trade negotiations. And if you want to see something that I cannot understand at all, it's a number of very senior level people in the president's campaign staff are foreign lobbyists on leaves of absence. They're certainly not representing our interests, and I find it obscene that he tolerates it. I brought it up in the debate, and he weakly tried to defend it, and then went on to another subject. But it's happening, big time, and it's costing you jobs, big time. The net effect of this type of hands-off, closed-eyed, hands-over-the-ears management is this, right here. Our young people, 18 to 24 years old, in 1980, 18% of them made less than $12,000. Today, 40% make less than $12,000. Our country is going backward, not forward. The good jobs are no longer here. Women, 29% back in 1980 made less than $12,000. And here, 48% of the 18 to 24-year-old women in this country make less than $12,000. Now, can we afford 4 more years of non-leadership in terms of the most vital thing in the world to the American people, and that is the job they need to support their family? And believe me, we need your taxes from those jobs to pay our bills and run our government. And yet, his attitude is, if you don't touch it, it will fix itself. So far, it's gotten worse. If you elect me, we're going to touch it, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to rebuild the industrial base in this country, and we're going to make the words "made in the USA" the world standard for excellence once again. Finally, here's the one that breaks my heart. When I was a young man, it took less than 2 generations to double the standard of living. There's the American dream right there. You could come from a poor family and live the American dream, go to college, be anything you wanted to be. Because of the damage I have just described here, with President and Vice President Bush in charge of the whole thing, had deregulation in the 80s. He had the wheel as captain of the ship from 88 to 92. Here's where we are today. Here is where we are today. It takes 12 generations to double our standard of living. Now, if you can live with that, if you want to just continue drifting forward, cast your vote for President Bush. If you want to fix this and get back down here where we have the American dream again, I have pledged to do that, and we'll all have to work on it, but we can do it. And when we've done it, we will feel so good about it because we did the right thing for our children. In the 1980s, Vice President George Bush was in charge of anti-terrorism. Bush created Marcos in the Philippines with hundreds of millions of our taxpayer dollars. He also created chaos for the Philippines and for us. Then he got us involved in Iran-Contra, and yet he denied any responsibility even though he was in charge. He also created Noriega in Panama with more millions of our taxpayer money and extensive CIA connections. Noriega got out of control, and American troops had to fight and die to take him out of power. Throughout the 1980s, Bush spent billions creating Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Iraq got out of control. American troops again fought and died to remove Hussein from power. Bush stopped the war too soon. Saddam Hussein remains in power today with his nuclear, chemical, and biological capabilities still intact. Finally, Bush created a new bad boy of choice in the Middle East. He allowed Assad of Syria to take a big part of Lebanon. Never forget that this man, Assad, killed 243 U.S. Marines in the Beirut airport bombing and blew up Pan Am 103. You tell me, why did George Bush embrace him? We're now faced with Iraqgate, while we peel back the sick story of Bush spending billions of taxpayer money to create the tyrant Saddam Hussein. Bush still has not learned from Churchill's advice: never cozy up to tyrants. We have paid a tremendous price for George Bush's mistakes. Let's go to business now. In the 80s, Vice President George Bush was in charge of deregulation. In 1984, the President and Vice President were officially told about the savings and loan problem. They were told it was a $50 billion problem. But the PAC money kept coming in. And the biggest crooks in the world were around those savings and loans, and they were buying and paying for Washington at every level in the most flagrant way you can imagine. Whole books have been written about this. Well, the net measurement, as far as you and I are concerned, is that our government didn't even act until after the 1988 election. At that point, the problem had mushroomed to several $100 billion. That's coming right out of your pocket and my pocket. You and I never got any of the benefits, but boy, do we pay the price. We have paid a high price for the 1988 elections because the savings and loans were allowed, and the banks were allowed to deteriorate for 4 years so that we could do that. Now, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. It's a matter of public record now that they're holding up bank and saving and loan failures until after this election. At least 100 banks and savings and loans will fail right after the election. Congress should have appropriated $60 billion this year, and the President should have demanded it, but everybody sat on it because it wasn't politically correct to let us know that was happening. But right after these elections, you're going to see a whole series of bank and savings and loan failures. You can read about it in the Washington Post. You can read about it anywhere you want to. It's all over the place. Nobody talks about it. I thought we ought to bring it up tonight because look at your wallet. The payment of that debt is going to come right out of your wallet, and you got none of the benefits. In the Tax and Budget Summit, they raised our taxes and told us if we would take that tax increase, we could balance the budget, put our house back in order, and rebuild our country for our children. They never told us, and even I didn't know, that they appropriated $1.83 of new spending for every dollar they raised. And in fact, they just created a massive increase in the debt. This is voodoo economics, live, over television. The President, in all candor, just ignored our economy as Vice President and President. As President, repeatedly he said we were not in a recession. You knew we were in a recession. You were out of work. I knew we were in a recession. Everybody that can count knew we were in a recession. But he didn't know we were in a recession, and I don't think he knew. He was so preoccupied with diplomacy around the world and so focused on the gridlock between White House and Congress, where he got up every morning and accused Congress of everything that wasn't happening. Congress accused him, and that did not serve the American people. We cannot have gridlock. President Bush's chief economic advisor said publicly that he didn't care whether the United States made potato chips or computer chips. The President had never corrected him. Here's a man that thinks computer chips and potato chips are the same. One of his senior economic advisors. Now, I love these economists. You know, both of them constantly quote their economists. Governor Clinton's got the Nobel Prize-winning economist. George Bush has got his economist, thinks computer chips and potato chips are the same. Had a truck driver ask me the other day, said, Ross, did you ever know a rich economist? Confused me for a minute. I said, no, I don't think I did. Why? He says, well, if these old boys are so smart, why aren't they rich? Well, folks, the economists put us in this mess we're in. Their theories got us where we are. And believe it or not, it's computer chips are the same as potato chips. computer chips are an industry of tomorrow. I've spent my life around computer chips. I've eaten a lot of potato chips. Both are important, but when it comes to good, high-paying jobs, putting millions of Americans to work, it breaks my heart that we have gone from the country who created the computer chip to a country that buys 19 out of 20 computer chips from Japan. If we were just planning a picnic, instead of trying to plan a future for our children, chicken and potato chips might be exactly what we need. But in the serious business of our country's future and our children's future, isn't it fascinating that we have two of the three contenders who just don't have any business experience or money management experience and have a record splattered all over the place proving that they cannot deal with the issues that will determine your job, your future, and most importantly, your children's futures. So we got the chicken man and the potato chip man, and you got me. And what you need to decide as you go to vote on Tuesday is which of the three candidates has any knowledge at all. I won't say the best. Which of the candidates has some knowledge on managing money? And believe me, we've got big-time experience by Clinton and Bush in mismanaging money. Which of the candidates knows how to create jobs? There's only one that has any experience at all. Which of the candidates only belongs to the people and hasn't taken a penny from foreign interests? There's only one candidate. Which of the candidates did this just for the sole purpose of serving his country and has agreed to serve without pay as a matter of principle? Which of the candidates has said again and again and again that he will be the servant and you will be the boss? I haven't even heard that from the other two. Only one candidate understands who owns this country. You own this country. And finally you look squarely at me and say, why is he doing this? Surely all of you know now there's just one reason. I'm doing it because I love the country, I love you, and I am deeply concerned about having all of our children and grandchildren live the American dream that you and I have experienced. Potato chips and chickens are not America's future. Good night.
Because it's important for all Americans to see this program before the election, we will run it again tomorrow. Please watch for it and tell your friends.
I was never interested. I never saw any candidate that I would vote for. They all said the same thing. Nothing ever seemed to get done. Everyone that I knew that was in my business, the talk was always the same. They say one thing, they get in, they don't do it. I really believe that Ross Perot's the man that can get it done.
Hey, we love you, Ross. All the college people, we love you, buddy.
We have a country that is $1 trillion in debt, trillions of dollars in debt. We did it. Our government did it. I think it's about time that somebody does something about it, and I think Ross Perot can do that.
When I hear Perot speak, it's as though I'm saying the words. He's speaking for me. What he says is coming out of his heart. You just know it.
And I was a firm Clinton supporter, and the debates has changed my mind. Watching the debates has turned me completely around. Mr. Perot is the man for this country.
Well, if everybody who thought like me decided to vote for him, I wasn't going to vote for him because I didn't think he could win. But then I thought that's silly.
I think that America needs to change in the system because the system we have now isn't working, and I want my daughter to have a future.
Half the people for Bush are just afraid of Clinton. Half the people for Clinton are just afraid of Bush. They're waiting to find out Perot has a chance.
It's time for a change, and we voted Democrat before, and we voted Republican before, and the country's still sinking. I like this Ross Perot because he's a businessman, he's not politicking, he's come right to the fact, right to the point about the economy and the other things, health problems and so forth. I have to take my vote to him.
I tell you, Perot is going to win, and I tell you why. If you've ever watched a pro football game and have seen the 2-minute offense and work, you're about to see the greatest 2-minute offense in the history of all, not only politics, but any event in the history of time. This is going to be a 2-minute offense orchestrated by the greatest quarterback of all, Ross Perot.
You know you're driving them all crazy down there in Washington. And you know that they say that I'm crazy and everybody that supports me is crazy. Do you remember the country and western song, Crazy? And the theme was Crazy in Love with You? Well, I make no bones about it. I love this country. I love the principles it was founded upon. I love the people in this country, and I don't like to see those principles violated.
You have to vote with your conscience and your heart. I considered voting for Bush. I supported him the last time. And I say to myself, well, I don't support what he's done over the last 4 years. He hasn't helped us. And I just see New Jersey going down the tube. It's really sad. And if we don't support Ross Perot, we've got no choice. We really don't have any other choice.
We have a corrupt system, and it's not working for us anymore. And you've got to get out and vote for Perot and let us have our government back.
I can't do it without you. You're going to have to tap your congressman on the shoulder. But in terms of can we break gridlock, how many of you saw the debates? Did any of you count how many times Bush said, I agree with Ross? Did anybody count how many times Clinton said, I agree with Ross?
When there's two liars and two fakes running as the major candidates in this country, and somebody comes along saying the truth and showing what common sense and ideals can do for America, you know they got a reason to be scared. When the status quo is being shaken up, you get enough people to wake up to the truth, you'll get more than just 20% or 25%. He reaches a certain point, it's going to be a critical mass, and he'll take off.
Because we had a group of people in last night at our home, and we were discussing this, and the people that originally were going to vote for Clinton just flipped right over to Perot, and it's just like I couldn't believe it.
We're not going anywhere with who we have. And the other guy that's running, Bill Clinton, he's going to take us down even faster. So Perot's the only logical choice.
Tell him, Sammy, she wants the country to grow up in. Can't spend her money anymore. The only person that's going to get rid of the deficit is Ross Perot. George Bush isn't, and Bill Clinton isn't.
Now, everybody that knows anything about politics is urging everybody across this country, don't throw your vote away. And I'll tell you what we've got going. We had an interesting situation happen in a grocery store in Dallas the other day. They were in a supermarket, man and his wife. A friend came up to him and asked the man, say, who are you voting for? And he mentioned one of the other candidates. And his wife, as they walked away, said, I can't believe you're voting for him. He said, I'm not voting for him, I'm voting for Ross. I just didn't want him to know. So maybe I should, just keep it a secret and then vote on November the 3rd. That's all.
Basically, I think a lot of people that really feel like they're going to waste their vote, I think deep down in their heart, they really aren't vocal, that I think deep down in their heart, they're going to go into the curtain and really vote for Ross. I really think a lot of people are just going to vote for him. They don't want to be vocal. They're afraid to express their opinion, but they're really going to go in there and just pull that lever for Ross all the way. Very optimistic about that.
No, they'd be wasting if they don't follow their heart and their good mind and their intuition. And that's what's really been out here today. Ross Perot is intuitively bright in the answer for this country. And if they'll follow that intuition and pull that lever, we'll be much better off. And I think it's going to happen.
You got to make a choice. If you want to take your country back, he's the man that'll do it. I suggest people not listen to other people telling them not to vote for Ross Perot because they think their vote's going to be thrown away. I think if they just get up and go ahead and vote for him, I think if enough people did that, I think that the election could turn around.
Now, when you're talking to just good people who make the world go around, ask them these questions and let them decide, and then let them go vote their conscience. Now, realize that's not politically correct anymore to let a human being decide how he or she wants to vote. You're supposed to tell them, right? But, no, just ask these questions and say, go vote your conscience. Here's one for you. If you're going into combat and you could pick one of the three of us, who would you want at your side? If you were taken hostage in a foreign country, which one of the candidates do you think would come in and get you out? Now let's turn it around. All three candidates show up at your house one night and want to borrow money from you. Yeah. Now, which one would you lend money to? Now, let's assume you had to be gone for a year. Let's assume you had to do a tour of duty somewhere. You and your wife had to be gone for a year. Which of the candidates' families would you be most comfortable having take care of your children for 1 year? Primarily Margot, right.
We love our America, and we want it back the way it used to be. I mean, everything's going to pot. There's no jobs. The people are starving, the health care, I mean, everything's down the drain.
The politicians have, my point of view, have destroyed the whole country.
Years ago, I struggled. I went through a divorce, and I raised 2 children and went back to school and finally made it in the bank. I made it to an officer position, and my whole world came to an end. Now I've gone back to college, and I'm trying to make my American dream come true once again. And I'm afraid when I finish college, no matter how hard I try or how fast I try to get through with a average, my American dream isn't going to be there. I think the jobs will be gone. I think Ross Perot will generate more jobs and give me a better chance to realize my dream.
I want the America to be the America you and I grew up in, where our ability to make things and to have the industries of tomorrow and to have the highest paid workers in the world was the envy of the rest of the world. There's a lot of things I don't know much about, but I spent my whole life creating jobs, and I think I know how to do that. And they were high-paying jobs. And I spent my whole life managing money and staying away from borrowed money and having money in the bank, and that's what we ought to have in our country.
How can this guy not be anything but honest, true, and the best thing for us?
Good old-fashioned values, love for America, for its people, and for what we've always stood for.
I would like to introduce the man who sent me his Purple Heart and said, carry it for good luck during the campaign, and in all 3 debates I had it pinned right in here over my heart. Dennis Perot, come here.
I'm a father and husband who loves his family very much. I'm a war veteran. I drive an old Chevy wagon that still runs like a top. I wear jeans to work, and I carry my lunch in a brown paper bag. I'm just one person in the growing ranks of the army of ordinary citizens that is mustered to the call of Ross Perot. I wrote that letter for all of us, for each and every American. I wrote it for the rich and the poor. I wrote it for the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Independents. This is an unprecedented time in our history, and by sending Ross Perot to Washington as our next president, we will be sending a clear message to Congress that the people want improvement now. Thank you very much. God bless America. God bless Ross Perot.
Democracy is not a game. It's not voting for the winner. It's voting for who you believe is right.
Anything can be done. If we could let this country fall apart, we could fix it. And I think he's the person who can do it.
I don't think you go by the polls. I think you go by who's the best man. I think Ross has the most open mind, like I say. He can figure out what's best for America. He's a businessman. He knows what to do.
Now, the people in Washington are supposed to be our servants. We have got the thing all turned around, and we're providing them with indoor gymnasiums, indoor tennis courts, free. Anybody get a free barbershop in your life? I don't. How many of you up here today have a chauffeur driving you around? I don't. When I get too old to drive, I'll stay home. Now, the point being, good people, and they're all good people, lose absolute touch with reality because they get inside what I call the Washington bubble. Is there any question in your mind that if you send me up there, I am #1 going for one reason, and that's because of you and your children and my love for you and my love for this country, and that's it.
think he has all the right ideas. He wants to do it for the people. It's the government is people, and we lost that. It's gone. And I think he can bring it back. I think he can make the best possible president we will ever remember. We just have to get him in.
Everybody here needs to get 5 other people to join this army, and it's over. Now let's think pragmatically about it. You got one candidate from a rural state whose principal industry is raising chickens.
I think what Clinton's promising everything to everybody, and if he delivers, we're going to all be broke.
You got another candidate whose philosophy is if you don't do anything, things will get better.
With all that's happened as far as investigating this thing and that thing and the Iran-Contra, I just don't feel comfortable with George Bush in any way, shape, or form.
You've got 2 candidates that were funded and paid for by PAC money, foreign lobbyists, and special interests. And your candidate doesn't belong to anybody but you.
I think the media is biased towards Clinton, and they're not really giving Ross Perot a chance.
I think the news media has been very unfair to him and very unkind.
I was watching a news broadcast today, and they outright just called him a crackpot, that people were going to be deciding if he was a crackpot, and that's not objective journalism.
At one time they said that I was crazy, and anybody that supported me was crazy. And boy, have we got a lot of crazy people in this country. But even today, they're wandering around in Washington saying, well, who are these people anyhow? Now, they've taken enough polls, they ought to know everything in the world about you, but they haven't figured you out yet. You're supposed to sit home passively in front of the television set and let them tell you how to vote, right? That's the way the whole system's set up. They're just supposed to manipulate you through the media, and you're supposed to, like a little robot, go down there and pull a lever, go back home and send money to Washington and not complain that you're not getting results. That's not the way the Constitution was written, folks. Constitution says this country belongs to you, and the people that go to Washington work for you. We are this close to putting that back where it ought to be. And we can do it.
I didn't know anything about the issues until Ross Perot became involved.
I can understand him. He's more down to earth than just, politics. He's more like everyday life. I can understand that. When it comes to politics, I have a hard time understanding it.
If you can live with the least effective public school system in the industrialized world, and when you and I went to school, it was the greatest public school system in the world, if you can live with that, you and I are on 2 different planets. Can you live with it? Can you remember in the Depression, those of you who are my age, when times were really hard and we left the doors unlocked? Now we have the most violent, crime-ridden society in the industrialized world. Now, I can't live with that. Can you live with that? We have a country where millions of innocent people have had to go to prison. They have put bars on their own windows and bars on their own doors because we have abandoned their neighborhoods to crime. Now, I can't live with that. Our neighborhoods should be safe. The children should be able to play in the streets. And you and I can fix that together.
He strikes a chord in the average American citizen. He's honest. He represents integrity.
Ross Perot just has earned my trust with the way he's dealt with people and trying to stay with issues and to listen to what the people have to say and to act accordingly. And I think he'll do the same once he becomes president.
Now, in the first debate, I said I'm all ears, and everybody laughed. I think it's time to have people in Washington who listen to you who are all ears. Now, when you consider the debates, you know, they almost didn't let us in the door, and everybody was just kind of holding their nose and laughing. How do you think we did? Now, the thing you missed, and I have to share this with you because everybody was doing this with taxpayer money but me. See the debates? Everybody flew in on, you pay for the campaigns, you know that. You're paying for everybody's campaign except mine. And here's what happens with your money. Bush sent 350 advanced men. Clinton sent 200 advanced men. They had 100 telephone lines apiece. I sent 3 people. 2 of them wondered why I sent them. They had this tremendous debate about how big can the motor cavalcades be? And they thought, well, 48 cars apiece was about right. And they finally looked over at Mark and said, Mark, how big is Mr. Perot's motorcade? He said, we rented 1 car from Avis. But then the question is, can we break gridlock? We already did it, folks. Here's how. Go back to the debates. You remember President Bush saying, remember President Bush in the debate saying, I agree with Ross. Then Governor Clinton would say, I agree with Ross. Did you see what the neuropsychologist from Boston said after the debates? He said, blinking is very indicative of stress. Bush blinked 53 times a minute. Clinton blinked 47 times a minute. And this cur dog that the people put on the ballot, Perot, blinked 7 times a minute. So maybe it's time you just send a tough old bird up there as your servant who can take the heat and won't blink.
He's an old-fashioned kind of person that you can do business with on a handshake, and he's going to keep his end of the bargain whether you do or not.
The American dream is the most precious and fragile thing we have. Historically in our country, we double the standard of living of our people every other generation. At our growth rates today, it would take 12 generations. I am absolutely dedicating to getting it back to where your children can achieve dreams that you and I could only dream about. Are you with me on that? If anybody in this country has an obligation to all the people in this country, I do. Because I have had so much good luck, so much good fortune, and the headaches and sacrifices that'll be involved in this activity are a small, small token repayment to this great country that's been so good to me. And that's the only reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it for you.
If you don't vote for Ross, I think you're throwing your vote away. I think that I think this country is having some serious problems. I think we have people laying out in the street like a third world country. I think we have to do something a little bit different, and I think Ross brings that different type of approach of looking at the problem and addressing the problem. So I don't see it as a waste of vote. I think it's so necessary, and I don't know if this country has a lot of time not to vote for a guy like Ross Perot. I think he's really needed.
When he first started running, I was just thinking, well, what's he running for? But then my friends and I started studying him, and he seems like the guy with intense personal integrity. And it's really impressive that he stayed in the race, because I mean, politics is just so bureaucratic right now. They push you out. They want politicians, and politicians can't fix the country. And somebody with, like, Perot's integrity is very rare, and I really want to see him take it.
Now, the clock's ticking down. We got 2 minutes to drive the ball over the goal and win the game. Now, let me define what winning the game is. I want all 50 states.
Ross Perot isn't a politician. That's what's so good about him. He's not a politician. This man is interested in people. That's what we need. We need somebody that's interested in us for the first time. First time. We need that.
Everybody out here has been labeled spoilers. Can you handle that? Now, I love that one. You know, all these boys with $1,000 suits and their blow-dried hair, and some girl telling them what to say, says, don't you realize you're nothing but a spoiler? And I says, we can't be spoilers. It was spoiled rotten before we started. That's why we started. Let me go squarely on record to a group that you really need to focus on, because you need to reach out to them in a loving way. You need to reach out to all these folks who've been supporting President Bush because he can't win. Just one of those things. Just one of those things. When you're talking to your 5 friends, let me give you some things to just kind of jog their memory, their thinking. Ask them to look at the 3 candidates and say, if you were going into combat, which of the 3 would you want at your side? Now that kind of separates it up. Let's assume all 3 lived in the neighborhood and came over one night. They all were the same economic status, and all 3 asked you if they could borrow money. Which one would you lend money to, and which... and is there one you would not lend money to under any circumstances? See? That kind of gets it down to reality. You know, if you won't loan him money, why in the world would you want him in the White House? The point being, think that way. Get your friends to think that way, because if you can't trust them, if they can't perform, if they can't produce, the fact that they've got all these handlers propping them up and sending them out on stage and powdering and perfuming them doesn't do a thing to fix the problems for you, right? It's basic stuff, basic stuff.
He has the abilities, you know, as a business person. I think perhaps that he's been through a lot in his life in terms of a small business, in terms of being able to operate that to rise where he's at this point. And I think perhaps that his diligence and his self-assertion, you know, being self-asserted in the different areas, you know, I feel that he could make a good president.
There are millions and millions of people out there who want to vote for me, who are teetering right on the line now, and they know it, so they're sending in Patriot missiles every day against us. You know, that's the reason for what this stuff that's going on now. They're scared to death. People are going to follow their conscience and vote for me. Now, you know, we've already covered the fact that the only way not to throw your vote away is to vote for me. And we've covered very bluntly, we've got all these fine people out there who are wonderful Americans who have been planning to vote for President Bush, who absolutely will be throwing their vote away because he can't win, and we want to bring them in. Bring them in. And if we can just keep these other folks from throwing their votes away, we'll have a landslide. So when you elect me, I don't belong to anybody in this world but you. And that's the way it ought to be. But now let's just put it in plain talk. All the people who work for you, you call by the first name, right? And I'll just net it out to you. Starting November the 4th, you're the boss, and I'm Ross. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. I can hardly wait until we see the results of the initiative, creativity, and the ability of millions of Americans who just went out there and took their country back. God bless you all.
I think he'd be a great president. He's for the people, he's down to earth, and you can tell he's just like us.
I like the way he said things about the way he wants to manage a country, and I think he will do a very good job.
I think we need a change and a positive change, and that's Ross Perot.
Because he's going to win. He's picking up more people all the time. The polls are improving for him, has been consistently for the past couple of weeks. And he's going to get in. He's going to make it.
Oh, no doubt about it. Ross Perot's man. He's got to win. That's our only hope.
Says exactly what's going on, and stuff I can understand, and seems very honest, that's all.
On November 3rd, don't waste your vote on politics as usual. Make your vote count. Vote for a real change. Vote for Ross Perot.
This is a critical time. I know you don't want to waste your vote this year. The fact is, you are wasting your vote this year if you elect a candidate who continues politics as usual. I will not do that. I will deal head on with these problems. I will fix these problems. Cast your vote for your children.